And
Action. What are the components of an emotionally supportive and equitable classroom? What strategies can you employ in your classroom to ensure an emotionally supportive and equitable classroom environment for your students? Something that we use in our classroom to be supportive for social and emotional skills are conscious discipline. And then the other is just the language that we use, always offering choices and just letting the child know, I know your feelings. I understand that you're upset right now and that you really want to use this toy, but right now this child's using this toy, so you may choose this or this. And then, if they try to take the toy again, do it one more time. If they do it a third time, then it's like, I understand that you're frustrated and you want to play with this toy, but if you choose to take the toy from Tommy again, then you're choosing to not play with this toy for the rest of the day. So do you choose this or this? And then that allows the child to make that conscious discipline and that conscious choice, like, do I really want to play with this toy? And if I do, then I'm going to choose something else until it's my time to play with this. And I think that just making sure that you have materials in your classroom, such as books or even the little, I don't even know what you want to call them, the little squishies and handheld things.
oh, like fidgets.
Yeah, and sensory items. Because I think it was Crystal that said it, just how much emotionally and socially the kids have changed since this whole COVID deal. Like,
Yeah.
it's just been so high that I've had to add kinetic sand in my classroom, lots of Play-Doh, lots of sensory, because we're having lots of the emotional breakdowns, and these items that we've added in have been very helpful and supportive when it comes to maintaining the classroom emotionally.
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
fidgets in my room too. The kids really like it when they're stressed to do that. The simple dimples, the popping,
Mhm.
they really like that. And we have feeling charts in my room. I think that helps the kids as well, because sometimes we're not able to identify what they're doing. And we have reversible mirrors that'll show an actual child displaying that emotion. And then you flip it, and then on the other side is a mirror so that you could show the child, or they can show you and you can match that emotion to them. I think by having the right pieces in your room, so that if they're verbal, if they're nonverbal, if they're upset, that they can grab to show. The whole thing is identifying the feeling that they're feeling, and making sure that they feel heard no matter what age they are. I think that that's the way to help improve the environment, is just making sure that those things are accessible to the children. So, and that'll help with a lot of challenging behaviors.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
agree.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Rita.
No, and I also think that it's important that from the first day that you start building those strong, positive relationships with them, so they'll know that if something is wrong, you can come to me. Because sometimes kids are might be terrified of you, but if you give them a chance and you start building that relationship, when something is wrong or somebody does something to them, they're more likely to come to you. Or if they're upset, they're more likely to come to you as a source of helping them regulate themselves. And you might be able to talk to them better about what's going on. And then, we have to give them the words because they might not have them, and then give them a chance, to, okay, so what happened? Why are you feeling that way?
I agree with what all three of you have said so far. In our classroom, we also like to just kind of give them options so that they feel like they're making the choice and not us. And like Crystal mentioned, yes, there's been a lot of more emotional breakdown since COVID, because, at least for me, I'm in preschool. These little kids, like, they haven't been in an environment of school and dealing with other kids, like outside of their home. So it is a little bit more difficult. But I think just having those tools and having those fidgets and, other extra activities available to them and being able to talk to one another, I think that really helps overall. So.
Yeah, I can go next. I think the most important component of emotionally supportive and equitable classroom is when they all walk in, they feel like they belong. It's their safe place. That will help at the first place to keep all those emotions down and in control. Like their names everywhere, their pictures, the stuff they brought from home, their family pictures on a wall, all those things can give them all such emotional support that we will have to use less of other strategies when they're already feeling supportive and being included in the classroom. And then everything that you guys said, that if we do see that they're struggling with, there are so many things we can do to help them.
Yeah, I agree with all you guys. I feel like you guys all made really good points with like Carmelia said, just having like a strong bond, and then we just talked about feeling welcome. And I like how Crystal made the point about like having the kids stand by their feelings, and you guys talked about like fidgets. You guys all made great points. But kind of just like to add on to is just like I would definitely say like having like a calming area or just like a relaxing area for a kid to kind of just like de-stress. I know you guys kind of talked about it with like fidgets and like kinetic sand. And then we do the same thing in our classroom. Like we have like an emotions chart because some of our kids can't they have a hard time identifying their feelings, or they can't like physically they don't have like the language to identify their feelings. So I think that was a really great point too that you brought up with like the mirrors. And then I would also just say too, just like knowing your students, like I feel like we always talk about this, but like not every student is like the same. So like some students need more support, some students need more like comfort or that emotional connection, or some students just need that time to like, you know, that space to themselves to relax. So like I think just knowing your students, having that good trust, and then you know, like every student is different, so what works for one not going to work for the other. So helping your student the best way you can.
Yeah, in my class, we focused a lot on self-monitoring. So a lot of my kids are, I guess their social emotional is very undeveloped, but they're like super incredibly smart. So they have a hard time balancing that. So like usually when your IQ is super high and you're smarter than most of the kids and your social emotional development is lower, it's hard to balance that, and their emotions are so loud and expressive that they don't know what to do. So we focused a lot in the beginning of the year on like self-monitoring and self-soothing. So we played, instead of doing we do like a bunch of brain breaks, but instead of doing like normal brain breaks that we do now, we did a bunch of different breathing brain breaks. So they taught you like how to breathe, like, and it was nice because it wasn't like boring, like, oh, take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. It was more like, this is how like a whale breathes. We're going to do whale breathing. So we would do like whale breathing or lion breathing and stuff like that. So for half the year, when a kid would get super upset and like super emotional, some of them would just scream and scream and scream, and there's no way you could figure out what they were doing. And we would be like, okay, like let's take whale breaths. And they would immediately like start doing whale breaths, and that would focus them in on doing something instead of screaming. What we do now is we do a lot of self-reflection because a lot of my girls want to hear their own voices. So I let them. So it's like today I had to pull two girls into the hallway. Usually when they're not listening or behaving well, we pull them into the hallway because our room is so small. And I would prefer to pull them into the hallway instead of like talking to them and like not scolding them, but like telling them that's not how they should act in front of the other kids, because then all the other kids have something to say. So today I pulled out two girls just because of their behavior and the way they were talking to the teachers. And I like to talk and tell them like, well, why did I pull you out? Why are you on the hallway right now? Why are you upset? Those why questions, and having them answer instead of putting that word into your mouth, instead of saying like, well, I pulled you out because you were talking in line, you were pushing your friend. I let them tell me, and that puts it into their perspective. Like, oh, I'm not getting in trouble because my teacher's mad at me and like she's just pulling me out to pull me out. This is why I'm getting in trouble because I made the wrong choices, and now And then I always ask them, well, how should we be acting? How should we fix that? And then they tell me forever. And then I say, okay, good, go apologize. And then I say, okay, go. That's what we do now. But we focused a lot on breathing techniques, and a lot of my students still do that. So when they get super upset, they do whale breathing or bubble breathing and stuff like that. I think there's octopus breathing too. Some kids will be like, I'm doing unicorn breathing. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Gotta go. But yeah, I focus a lot on like self-soothing, self-monitoring. And their big thing right now is trying to show me how kindergartners act. They're not in kindergarten. They're in pre-K. They'll be in kindergarten next year. But it's the big thing. Miss Marissa, I'm going to show you how a kindergartner is supposed to walk in the hallway. Okay. Thank you so much. So that's what I do.
Okay. We're ready for the second part.
Mhm.
You have just been hired to teach kindergarten in a public school. Write a 2-paragraph or more letter to parents describing why developmentally appropriate practices and learning through play are important in kindergarten. And I wrote down that you were able to observe children during and at play. You're able to see the interactions with their peers and the environment. This helps you as a teacher to learn each child's interest, as well as what skills they have and don't have, and developmental progress. And then sometimes you're able to see if anybody is not progressing and instead regressing. This allows you to also refine how or what you're going to teach to each child individually. When you do have that individual time, I don't personally know how it is in kindergarten. I don't know if you get a lot of individual time. I know with what I'm currently doing, I have to do individual time each week. I have to pick 4 or 5 students each week because they have to have a total of 25% a month of individual time. And it could just be getting to know the routine in the classroom, or it could be something simple, or it could be something like working on writing the letters in their name or whatnot. So I really didn't know which way to go on that with the individual part.
I do a lot of independent work in kindergarten because I'm in a kindergarten class now. And I think the most individual time like we give them is every day we do daily 5, which is either reading or writing. And one of the options is reading, and there's always a teacher to take the child to read their easy readers to see if they can move up or switch books. And that's about really all the individual time that they get. That's like one-on-one teacher.
Mhm.
So, because the rest of the time is group work, partner work, stuff like that.
In my letter to parents, I would tell them that we actually had this in our parent meeting for my center, but we had to film something of the kids playing and say what it looks like they're doing versus what is actually happening.
Mhm.
So we did Play-Doh. So I was recording Play-Doh and the kids were talking with one another. And I'm like, to you, this is a mess. They are just going wild. But here they are learning to be inventive thinkers. Not only that, they are extending their vocabulary. Not only that, they are interacting with and identifying their own and their peers' needs. You know, it was one of those where parents say, what did my child learn today? Or what is going on? In this letter, I would say that through play, they learn a hell of a lot more than what meets the eye. Oh, you think you just learned how to kick a ball. No, your child has progressed their gross motor skills. You know, you have to identify those things. And then the thing that helps me do that is using Teaching Strategies Gold, and it helps you. And then you can say, here's our curriculum. And this is what, and every time we do report cards, we say, this is what you should be expecting from your child next. And teaching strategies helps you come up with those. But, you know, I did it too. Well, I didn't do it, but like when my daughter was younger, I was like, well, what are they really learning right now? And it's not just sticking them in front of a piece of paper and telling them to trace, unless that's their jam. So I just make sure to let parents know just the details behind it, because it could be them simply drinking from a cup. But let's say they go from a sippy cup to a normal cup, or not knowing how to use utensils at lunch and using utensils. You know, there's a lot of hand-eye coordination. There's so much stuff that they don't see or recognize is such a big developmental milestone that you just got to break it down for them.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, Crystal. I agree with every single thing you just said. That's so true and so spot on. Because just in my preschool class alone at the beginning of the year, my kids, they didn't know how to open up their milk cartons or how to open up, you know, their snacks and things like that. So, and now about half of them, if not like 75% of them, are opening everything on their own. They don't really ask for help. And like, just even in that, you know, moment of the day, like breakfast, snack, whatever, like they're still learning so much. And, you know, those skills are building and building and building. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, you go.
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead. You go.
I would tell the parents that although it looks like Crystal was saying, looks like they're just playing, but when they're doing activities like building blocks, they're working on problem solving and building their critical thinking skills. And they're also learning how to share and interact with their peers and get along with others. And they're using their fine motor skills. Just because you think they're scribbling on a piece of paper, they're supposed to be scribbling on a piece of paper. You know, I have a parent who asked when we did our second home visit, she said one of her goals is for her daughter to be able to color inside the lines neatly. I'm like, she's 4. So parents think, you know, they have these ideas of what they think the kids should be doing, but it's like, no, that's not developmentally appropriate for her. And when I go back, I'm going to talk to her mom, like, you know, I understand that that's what you want, but actually she's just still working on her fine motor skills. So she should be making those she's going to be making big, wide coloring motions across the paper because she doesn't have those, her hands are not ready to do those fine motor things that you expecting her to do. So just things like that, just explain to them, this is what, like she said, this is what they're learning when they're doing those things. Even with the Play-Doh, they're working on fine motor, they're working on their sensory. So.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with both or all you guys. And I feel like you just made like a really good point too. Like, every child is different and they have milestones. Like, it's kind of like one of the students that I've been talking about in my class, like his parents want him to be like just a lot higher in like math and like reading. It's like, well, like developmentally, like he's not there. And then even so, like, you know, a lot of it too is just like learning maybe to sit a little bit longer. Like maybe they have to sit in group time. Maybe they just have to sit at a station. And I also feel like too, there's so much like learn through play, like what you guys talked about, like, you know, you're learning with like your fine motor skills, you're learning with writing, you're learning maybe just like something as simple as like playing with shapes, like you're learning, you know, like those connecting blocks. Right. And I feel like kids are learning a lot through like their social skills, they're learning through sharing. So like, yeah, a lot of the day is play, but that's just because that's what's developmentally appropriate for our students. And that's what they can handle. Like you still have to remember that they're young and children learn best through play. So I feel like if parents are, you know, saying like, oh, well, it looks like my child's playing, it's like, well, they're actually learning and they're having fun while doing it. So it's really the best of both worlds. And you also just have to remember what's developmentally appropriate for the students. So, you know, like you said, like maybe they're able to color, but they're not going to be able to color in the line. So you have to remember those milestones and those goals.
Absolutely. Everything you guys said. And in my letter too, I would include what are developmentally appropriate activities for the age, because people come from different culture. Like I came from India, and in my culture in schools in India, even in preschool, kids are writing their name, they're writing numbers. So parents might come from that, and they might think, oh, my child is lacking behind because he's not doing it. But so that it becomes very important for us to let them know that no, it's not developmentally appropriate at this age. We don't expect them. So I would definitely include what's expected out of this age, and also how play is the work of a child. Like when he's playing, he's working, he's learning, as you guys said, sharing, problem solving, critical thinking, all those things. So my letter will have all that stuff in that.
I think everything that everyone has said obviously would go into my letter. And I think the biggest thing that I would start off with is that parents also have to remember that, like, when kids are playing, they're taking a break. Like our kids, when I'm in kindergarten, like when they have free time and they're able to play and they're able to pick the different toys and blocks that they're allowed to play with, they're having free time, free choice, and it's giving them a break from what we're learning. Students cannot sit there for 6, 7, 8 hours a day and sit there and just take information. And I feel like parents forget that. And I think I would focus at least a paragraph on how it's just a nice break for them. And like in our kindergarten class that I'm in now, like all of our toys aren't really like, you think of toys and you think of like cars and you think of like Barbie dolls, stuff like that. The toys that we have in kindergarten are like connecting toys. They're different types of blocks to build things. They're like bendy connecting pieces. They're magnet tiles. It's all stuff that's has to do with STEM and engineering and like being able to build, but they still get that choice, but it's still a break. So they're still sitting there, they're learning how to put and build different things and different objects, but they're still learning those fundamental skills while sitting next to their friends who are doing the exact same thing. That's also developing their social emotional development. I feel like just parents like forget that like kids need a break sometimes. Like, yes, they're learning when they play with the toys in class, but also sometimes kids just need a break. And sometimes teachers want a break too. And it's nice for them to sit there and play for 10, 15 minutes during class. And so the teacher can work on other things.
Have we all shared?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I just want to say too, because what you just said, Marissa, it reminded me that sometimes I question like my pre-K classrooms, like, am I getting my kids ready enough for kindergarten? Because I know that other centers, it's ran differently than the center I run at. Like, I know like when Eckers and stuff comes, like we are not allowed to have the kids wait more than, I want to say 30 seconds for anything. That means transitions, that means anything at all. If we're playing a game, it has to be quick because they don't want anybody waiting. But when I logically think about it in the back of my brain, I'm like, but if we aren't teaching them how to be patient or how to wait for a turn or transition, how is that going to affect them going into kindergarten? And I feel like a part of me is slightly failing them, sending them off to kindergarten to be ready for kindergarten because they don't have those. I can't tell them that they have to sit down, or we can't even have names on our chairs anymore. Like that just changed through our accreditation last week. So everything that had their names on it, we had to take all their names off of everything. And if we want them to be able to identify their names, they can go on other things like the cards where they spell their name to transition with, but it cannot go on tables, chairs, none of that. So that way they can move their chair and sit wherever they want. We can put a place card down and then move that place card once they sit down. But like a lot of that's been taken away, and I feel like it's going to affect them maybe negatively in the very beginning of kindergarten.
Maybe, but remember, Tessa, like like what you say with the conscious discipline. Think of it as they have a choice. Are you making the right choice? Little Bobby sitting next to Billy. You guys like to talk a lot. You know what I mean? Like if you structure it in the right way, then I don't think that having the not assigned seat or like that structure of their faces or names on the chairs or whatever, I don't think it'll be too detrimental. It's just when you ride on that, but the way that you present it to them, I think it'll be fine. I mean, our Head Start, we can't do that either.
Can you do like, can you group the kids together? Like, so in my kindergarten class, we don't have their names on anything. The only thing that has their names on it is their folders. But we do color groups. So every kid at the beginning of the year was assigned a color group. And so each table has a different color on it. So they know like during lunch, like that's where they sit. They sit at the red table and it has like a red circle on it. And they sit at the red table or they sit at the yellow table. But then when like say they're all sitting at the carpet and we go, oh, okay, like red table, go get your stuff so we can like move on. Like if they're doing like if you're doing centers because you have preschoolers, if you're doing centers and you can be like, okay, red group, like go pick your center, and they don't have to go to the red table. They can go to whatever table. That's how we do it in kindergarten is every kid has a color group that they're in. But when they do like centers or they do daily 5 where they're sitting at the tables writing or reading, they can move and work around any table they want, but they're getting called that. So it's like slight structure. Like at lunch, they do sit at their colored tables. They're like assigned seats, but they can sit anywhere at that table.
We like to do assigned popsicle sticks, except I already know whose name I'm going to call, but the kids think that it's at random. So they think, oh, I'm sitting by anybody I want, but little did they know. So that way, you can kind of structure it that way too.
Yeah. So you can put like little structures, and I feel like the coloring, like grouping the kids, but like not grouped. They're not grouped, but they're kind of grouped. That might help, and that might give you more structure for you to think. So you don't think that you're failing your
Yeah, I might be able to get away with the color group. But we just have two with one really long table and then one that's half that size, but I might be able to break the tables into 2 and then do 4 colors. And that actually might be very helpful because I'm losing all my bigger kids to kindergarten this year. And then I'm going to be left with a classroom full of brand new 3-year-olds. So maybe at the start of the new school year, we'll start fresh with that and then also use the popsicle sticks too. So thank you for those tips, ladies.
And you can even do it like, because we just have the colors, but you could do like the different colored shapes. So you could do like red triangle group or incorporate math and stuff.
Green triangle, blue square, yellow circle.